Everyone failed to calm the shattered wolf, until the little black girl's whisper revived a fallen king. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The stormlight cage hummed like a cracked beehive, washing the room in sharp blue pulses that fluttered across Elias Ward's visor. The air felt cold enough to bite, and every breath carried that metallic tang of overworked generators. In the center of the fractured glow stood the figure everyone feared, the shattered wolf. Kael'thasn wasn't roaring now. He was pacing, shoulders low, eyes glowing dim amber, each step uneven like he was trying to keep himself from collapsing. His silhouette looked larger whenever the lights flared, then smaller, worn down, almost human when the glow dimmed again. Elias tightened his grip on the diagnostic wand. He wasn't here to fight. He was only supposed to adjust the failing containment field, make sure the distortions didn't blow out another transformer. The guards had retreated to the far wall hours ago, helmets lowered, hands fidgeting, waiting for something to go wrong. No one wanted to be near the cage. Elias stepped closer anyway. The air prickled against his skin. He kept his voice soft, steady, the kind of tone he used when engines overheated and just needed a little patience. Easy, he murmured, though he knew Kael probably didn't understand the words. The wolf's head snapped toward him. For a heartbeat, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Elias felt the weight of those amber eyes, not wild, not furious, but cracked through with something he recognized. Exhaustion, hurt. A silence grew between them, long enough for the lights to settle into a calmer rhythm. Elias adjusted a panel at the base of the cage, lowering the output just enough to ease the pressure without unlocking anything. The glow softened, and Kael's posture shifted, the tension loosening by an inch. Behind Elias, someone whispered, "How is he doing that?" As if Elias were performing a miracle. But he wasn't. He was just paying attention. Another pulse rippled through the cage, brighter this time. Kael flinched, turning his face away like the light stung. Elias swallowed. "That's too much for you, isn't it?" he said quietly. No reaction. Not a word. Just the faint trembling of someone holding on because they didn't know how to fall apart. And then, for a moment so brief Elias wondered if he imagined it. Kael met his eyes again, not with anger, but with the heavy, tired question of someone who had lost more than he could bear. Elias felt it hit him like a cold breath across his spine. The wolf wasn't dangerous because of rage. He was dangerous because he was breaking, and no one here knew how to reach someone who felt that lost. Elias stepped closer still, letting the field's static nip at his jacket. "You're not alone in there," he said, even if the alien couldn't understand a single syllable. The lights dimmed again, softer this time, and Kael lowered his head, not in submission, but in something quieter. Something almost like trust beginning to flicker in the cracks. The first quiet of the day. The first quiet Kael had given anyone at all. The hum of the stormlight cage settled into a softer rhythm, almost like it was matching the slow rise and fall of Kael'thasn's breathing. Elias Ward stayed close, watching the subtle shifts in the Wolf King's posture, noticing how the tension in his shoulders eased each time the lights dimmed. He was not sure if Kael understood anything he said, but the alien's gaze kept drifting back to him, steady and searching, as if trying to decide whether this quiet human could be trusted. A chime echoed down the corridor, light and quick, followed by the soft patter of small shoes. Elias turned just in time to see Maya Carter peeking around the corner, her dark curls bouncing as she leaned in. Someone must have left the side gate unsecured again. Elias's heart tightened. She should not be in a restricted zone, but her presence already seemed to shift the atmosphere. Even the guards straightened as if afraid to scare her. Maya lifted a hand in a tiny wave. "Hi, Mr. Elias," she whispered, like she was afraid of disturbing a sleeping animal. Kael's ears, tapered and delicate, flicked toward the sound. His eyes followed, glowing, faintly with a softer kind of alertness. Elias knelt beside her, keeping his voice low. "Maya, you should stay behind me, all right? He is having a difficult day." She nodded, her expression gentle, not frightened at all. He looks sad, she said. Elias felt something catch in his chest, because she was right. Beneath the height, the strange markings, the aura of power that clung to the Wolf King even in his weakest state, there was something honest in the way he stood now. Not threatening, just tired. Maya stepped a little closer. Elias reached out a hand to stop her, but Kale shifted, not forward, not in fear, but in recognition. As if the child's presence drew him out of the storm inside his mind. Maya tilted her head. "Hi," she whispered, the same tone a child might use for a shy dog at a shelter. The stormlight flickered, softer again. Elias could feel it in his skin, a gentle warmth instead of the earlier sting. It was the cage responding to Kale's lowered tension. Elias eased his hand away from the control panel and let the moment breathe. Kale blinked, each slow motion like he was remembering how to be present in the room. His breath steadied. He looked at Maya the way someone looks at sunlight after a long night. Elias felt a quiet shift in his chest. This was the first real calm they had seen from Kale. Not because of technology, not because of force, but because of a whisper from a child who had no fear of someone different. Elias glanced at the reflection of the containment field dancing across the floor, pale and trembling, like it finally ran out of reasons to stay angry. "You are helping him," Maya said softly. Elias shook his head. "No, kiddo," he whispered back. "Right now, that is you." Kale's gaze lowered, gentle, steady, almost grateful. And in that strange, fragile quiet, Elias felt something shift between all three of them, as if the room itself understood that this was the first step towards something none of them had expected. For a long moment, Elias Ward stayed perfectly still, letting the quiet settle the way dust settles after a long tremor. The storm-like cage glowed in a slow, steady rhythm, almost like a calm heartbeat. Maya Carter's small hand rested lightly against the transparent barrier, her fingers spread just wide enough for the warm light to catch between them. Kale Tharn watched her with a kind of cautious wonder, his amber eyes softening the longer her gentle presence filled the room. Elias felt the shift in the air, subtle but undeniable, like the first warm breeze after a long winter. He angled the diagnostic wand downward, lowering the output another fraction. The field responded with a faint hum, smoother than before. "He is listening to you," Elias whispered, more to himself than to her. Maya smiled, the tiny kind a child gives when she feels safe. "He is not scary," she said. "He just looks like he had a bad day." Elias almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. If only it were just a bad day. The Wolf King had lost more than anyone here truly understood. Still, Maya's words floated into the air like something soft enough to land without breaking the moment. Kale's gaze flicked toward Elias now, as if waiting to see what the human would do next. His posture lifted, not threatening, simply attentive. Elias took a slow step closer, letting the static brush against the sleeves of his jacket. He kept his hands visible, open, calm. "Kale," he said softly, shaping the alien name with care. "This is Maya. She means no harm." Kale's ears shifted, a tiny motion, almost like acknowledgement. Then he dipped his head, just a little. The guards at the far end of the room stiffened. One whispered into a communicator, voice unsteady. Elias ignored them. He was focused entirely on the Wolf King, whose breathing had finally found a steady rhythm. Maya traced a small shape against the glowing barrier, drawing curves that looked like a heart. Kale leaned closer, his breath faintly fogging the inside of the cage. Elias noticed something new, a reflection in Kale's eyes. For the first time, the alien was not staring at the barrier, or at the walls, or at the echo of memories he could not escape. He was looking at them, present, grounded. Elias exhaled slowly. "You see," he murmured. "You are not alone here." Kale blinked once, slow, deliberate, and lowered himself into a seated position inside the field. His shoulders eased. His hands rested on his knees. It was the closest thing to peace they had seen in days. Maya beamed. "He likes us," she whispered. Proudly. Elias did not answer, but the warmth that rose behind his ribs told him she was right. And then something even more unexpected happened. The lights in the cage steadied into a single warm tone, a rare condition the engineers once called a trust signature. Elias had never seen it happen with any captive being. Yet here it was, glowing softly around Kale like a crown of calm. The Wolf King let out a quiet breath, almost a sigh, and bowed his head toward the little girl on the other side of the barrier. It was not a gesture of weakness. It was something gentler, something closer to gratitude. Elias felt his pulse thrum with a mix of awe and responsibility. Whatever had just begun here, it was real, and it was only the beginning. The trust signature glowed in a calm amber ring around Cale Tharn, steady enough that even the nervous guards eased their grips on their equipment. Elias Ward felt the warmth of it across his forearms, a gentle hum instead of the sharp static that usually snapped against the air. Maya Carter stayed close to the barrier, her small palm pressed against the smooth surface as if she were comforting a frightened animal instead of a fallen king from another world. Elias checked the field readings again. The numbers held steady, for the first time since Cale had been brought in. No spikes, no tremors, just a slow, rhythmic pulse that matched the rise and fall of the Wolf King's breathing. "He is calmer," Maya whispered. "He is trying," Elias answered. And he meant it. Cale's posture was different now. He was seated with his back straight but relaxed, his hands resting loosely on his knees. Every so often, his eyes drifted toward Maya, not searching for danger, but finding something like orientation, like she was a lighthouse in a storm he had been trapped in for too long. Elias powered down a panel at the far corner of the room, reducing the harsh overhead lights to a softer glow. The shadows that stretched across Cale's features softened. His breathing deepened. Elias's voice stayed low. "Maya, I need to run a deeper scan. Stay right there, okay?" She nodded, curls bouncing. "I will be quiet," she promised. She meant it, too. Elias stepped along the perimeter, reading the flickering diagnostics that scrolled across the wand's small screen. The internal strain readings on Cale's containment levels were lower. His nervous responses were stabilizing. Most surprising of all, his cognitive markers were no longer spiking into panic states. "You are coming back to yourself?" Elias murmured. Cale lifted his gaze to him at the sound of his voice. For the first time, there was a hint of clarity in those amber eyes, like thin sunlight shining through cracked glass. He made a small motion with his head, slow and deliberate, something between acknowledgement and patience. Elias felt a spark of hope that surprised him. Maya shifted a little, drawing Cale's attention again. She tapped her fingers lightly on the barrier, creating a soft rhythm. Cale's ears twitched, following the pattern. "He likes sounds," Maya whispered, eyes bright. "Maybe it helps him feel safe." Elias considered that. Maybe she was right. Children often saw truths adults overlooked. He crouched beside her. "Can you keep tapping like that?" She nodded and continued the gentle rhythm, steady as a heartbeat. The stormlight cage responded, reflecting her pattern in tiny ripples that shimmered outward. Cale watched it with something close to curiosity. His shoulders loosened another fraction. Elias took the chance to run a full internal calibration. The field responded smoothly, no longer resisting his adjustments. It felt like working with a living thing finally willing to be helped. "Good," Elias whispered to himself. "We are getting somewhere." When he stood, Cale followed his movement with calm, steady eyes. There was no aggression in them now, only exhaustion and a quiet attempt to understand this strange room, these strangers, and the tiny child who somehow silenced storms with nothing more than a soft rhythm and a gentle heart. Elias looked between Cale and Maya, a slow realization forming inside him. "He is not afraid of us anymore," he said softly. Maya kept tapping, smiling as the glow pulsed with her small, steady beat. "He is not alone anymore," she whispered back. And for the first time, Elias believed it. The stormlight cage glowed in a warm, steady halo that painted soft reflections across the polished floor, like sunlight rippling over shallow water. Elias Ward watched the pattern settle into something almost peaceful, a rhythm shaped partly by his calibration and partly by Maya Carter's gentle tapping against the barrier. Cale Tharn's amber eyes followed the motion of her small hand, his posture steady, his breathing no longer tight or erratic but measured, as if he were relearning how to exist in a space without fear. Elias felt a quiet shift inside the room, subtle but undeniable, like the atmosphere was holding its breath in a softer way. He stepped toward the main console, keeping his movements slow. "Maya, keep tapping for a bit longer." "He responds to that," Elias said. She nodded, her curls brushing her shoulders as she focused on the delicate rhythm she had created. The light shimmered with each small impact of her fingertips, casting warm reflections that danced across Cale's features. The Wolf King lifted his head slightly, The expression in his eyes no longer cloudy, but watchful, curious. Elias scrolled through the diagnostics, his brow furrowing as the scans updated. The readings showed lowered stress responses, significant improvements in neurological regulation, and a stable heart rate. He whispered to himself, "You are coming back from whatever darkness you were trapped in." As if he sensed the words, Kale's gaze shifted toward him. There was no aggression in the movement, only a quiet alertness, the kind that came from someone beginning to understand that the world around him was no longer trying to hurt him. Maya looked up at Elias. "Is he getting better?" she asked softly. Elias considered his answer. "I think he is finding something he lost," he said. "Maybe he is remembering how to feel safe." Maya's smile was small and warm. Everybody needs someone to help them feel safe. Elias felt the truth of that settle in his chest. It was something he had always believed, but rarely said aloud. The station lights dimmed automatically for the evening cycle, casting the room in a softer glow. The hum of distant generators filled the silence with a low, comforting vibration. Kale lifted his face toward the changing light, his ears adjusting, the small motion almost like a sigh. Elias noticed the shift. "He reacts to changes in the environment," Elias murmured. "It matters to him." Maya leaned forward. "Maybe he thinks the sunset is pretty." Elias almost laughed at the innocence of it, but there was a tenderness to her words that made him pause. Kale was still watching the room with a slow, quiet awareness, taking in every detail with a patient steadiness that had not been there before. He turned his attention back to Maya, his eyes softening again. She pressed her palm more firmly against the barrier, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are doing great. We are right here." The stormlight responded, pulsing gently. Elias felt the air warm by a few degrees. "He trusts you," Elias said softly. Maya shook her head. "No, he trusts us." Elias looked at Kale, who lowered his head in a gesture so subtle and respectful that it made the entire room feel different. Lighter, more human. He understood now. This was not simply calm. It was connection, and it was growing stronger. The subtle glow of the stormlight cage settled into an almost gentle shimmer as the evening cycle deepened, softening every corner of the containment room into warm tones. Elias Ward adjusted the panel brightness down another notch, letting the calmer light match the steady pulse of Kale Tharn's breathing. The Wolf King sat with a stillness that felt intentional now, no longer the rigid tension of someone bracing for danger, but the quiet posture of a being trying to understand the world around him. Maya Carter remained close to the barrier, her small palm resting lightly against it, as if she were holding up a fragile bridge between two worlds. Her presence seemed to anchor Kale in ways Elias could not fully explain. Each time she breathed softly, the stormlight pulsed with the same gentle rhythm. Elias leaned closer to the readings on his diagnostic wand. The data continued to improve. No spikes, no erratic jumps. The neuroresponse graph had shifted into smoother arcs. It was the kind of recovery no manual or protocol had ever predicted. "Maya," Elias said softly, "I need to ask you something." She looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Do you know why he listens to you?" Maya glanced back at Kale, thoughtful. "Maybe he knows I am not scared," she said. "When someone is scared, it makes the other person scared too." Elias felt the simplicity of that settle into him like a quiet truth. Fear always echoed. Maybe calm did too. Kale watched them both, his amber eyes clear in a way Elias had not seen before. He shifted slightly, tilting his head, as if trying to interpret the meaning of their conversation. Elias stepped closer to the barrier, careful and slow. "Kale," he said in a steady voice, "can you understand us?" The Wolf King blinked once. Then again, deliberate, measuring. Elias noticed the slight lift of Kale's ears, a small but distinct reaction to his voice. Then Kale lowered his gaze for a breath, not in distress, but in what looked like concentration. When he raised his head again, he pressed his palm gently against the inside of the barrier, mirroring Maya's hand. The gesture sent a soft ripple through the stormlight, glowing brighter for a moment before settling again. Maya's smile widened. "He is trying to say something," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Yes, I think he is." Elias placed his hand near Kale's on his side of the barrier, not touching, just close enough for Kale to see the intent. "We want to help you," he said. "You are safe here." Kale's eyes softened, the amber hue warm and steady. He made a quiet sound, low and resonant, not a growl, not a warning, but a tone filled with something gentle. It vibrated through the air like the beginning of a word shaped without language. Maya leaned forward. "It sounds like when my mom hums to me at night," she whispered. The comparison made Elias pause. He glanced at Kale, at the soft light reflecting across the alien's face. The sound was soothing, a sign of trust, maybe even gratitude. Elias exhaled slowly, realizing just how far they had come. The Wolf King was no longer the shattered being who fought against everything around him. He was responding, listening, reaching. Maya tapped the glass lightly, and Kale's ears shifted again, attentive. Elias watched the exchange, the quiet harmony forming between them, and felt something rare inside him. Hope. Real, steady, growing hope. Whatever happened next, the connection forming in this quiet room was stronger than fear, stronger than misunderstanding. And it was changing all of them. The soft glow inside the containment room felt warmer than usual, as if the stormlight itself had begun to mirror the calm gently growing between the three of them. Elias Ward stood a few steps from the barrier, his diagnostic wand resting quietly at his side. He did not need readings to know something had shifted. He could feel it in the air, steady and warm, like a space finally learning how to breathe again. Kale Tharn sat with his back straight and relaxed, the gentle amber of his eyes reflecting the dimmed lights overhead. Every so often, he glanced toward Maya Carter, who still kept her palm near the barrier, her small fingers tracing little arcs that glowed and faded with each touch. She hummed under her breath, a barely audible melody that seemed to echo the tone Kale had released earlier. Elias noticed how Kale's breathing followed it, slow and even, synchronizing with the rhythm of her quiet sound. "He likes your song," Elias said softly. Maya nodded. "It is not a song," she whispered. "It is just how I make my baby brother calm down when he cries." Elias smiled at the simplicity of it. "It works here too," he said. Kale lifted his gaze at the sound of Elias's voice. There was awareness in his expression, a clarity that had been missing since the day he arrived at the station. He looked between Elias and Maya, his posture open, his hands relaxed on his knees. Then, as if making a decision, he pressed his palm lightly against the inner surface of the barrier. Maya gasped softly. He put his hand where mine is. Elias stepped closer. "Kale," he said gently, "do you understand that we are helping you?" The Wolf King blinked, slow and deliberate. His ears shifted slightly, angled toward Elias. The stormlight shimmered in a soft pulse. Then Kale inclined his head. Not much, just a small motion, but it was filled with intention. Maya's voice brightened. He nodded. He really nodded. Elias felt a warmth spread through him, a realization settling deeper than before. Kale was not just calm. He was choosing connection. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly from down the corridor, but Elias did not turn. He kept his attention on Kale, who seemed suddenly alert, not from fear, but from focus. Kale lifted his gaze toward Maya again. A deep breath rose through his chest, steady and full. Then came a soft, musical tone, low and resonant, shaped carefully as if he were trying to form something more than sound. Maya's eyes widened. "Is he talking?" she whispered. Elias shook his head gently. "Not with words," he answered. "But he is telling us something." Kale touched the barrier a second time, more firmly now, his palm aligning with Maya's hand. The stormlight halo brightened in response, glowing in a warm wave that washed across the room. Elias felt the temperature shift slightly, a gentle rise like the warmth before dawn. Maya leaned closer, her voice soft. "I think he is saying thank you." Elias watched the Wolf King lower his head again in that subtle gesture of acknowledgement, his eyes softening, the amber hue warm and steady. It was not submission. It was trust, earned, real, growing with every breath. Elias felt the moment settle around them like a fragile promise. Whatever darkness Kale had come from, he was stepping out of it now. Not alone. Never alone again. The containment room had grown so quiet that even the hum of the stormlight cage felt softer, as if the entire space was listening with them. Kale Tharn's calm had settled into something deeper now, a stillness that carried intention instead of fear. Maya Carter kept her palm near the barrier, her small hand tracing slow arcs of light that shimmered and faded in gentle pulses. Each glow reflected across Kale's face, softening the strong lines of his features, revealing layers of thoughtfulness beneath the weary posture. Elias Ward watched all of it with a quiet sense of awe. He checked the diagnostics again, but the readings felt almost unnecessary. The real data was right in front of him. Cale responded not to commands or technology but to presence, warmth, and the simple courage of a child who saw him not as a threat but as someone hurting. Elias stepped closer to the barrier. "Cale," he said softly, "can you show us more of what you feel?" The Wolf King lifted his gaze, the amber hue warm and steady. He blinked once, then twice, a deliberate motion that felt like acknowledgement. But instead of another hum or soft tone, he slowly reached toward the ground beside him. His fingers brushed the polished surface, drawing small, deliberate lines in the light that reflected beneath the stormlight glow. At first, Elias thought they were random marks, but Maya leaned forward quickly. "It looks like a shape," she whispered. Cale continued tracing, carefully, his movements slow but purposeful. Elias knelt to follow the pattern. It was circular with branching lines that resembled rays or paths. Not a word. A symbol. Maya's eyes widened. "It looks like the picture in my school book. The one about their leader. The one they called the Sun Crown." Elias felt his heart catch. The symbol matched reports from the Wolf King's homeworld. A crest of honor. A crest of responsibility. A crest of someone who once belonged to many, and had lost them. "Cale," Elias said quietly, "is this you? Is this your role?" Cale paused, then pressed his palm over the symbol he had drawn, holding it there for a breath before lifting his hand again. The gesture was clear. "Claiming. Remembering." Maya whispered. "He was important." Elias nodded slowly. "Yes. More than we understood." Cale's posture changed, his shoulders rising slightly, not in tension, but in something closer to dignity. His gaze held steady with a newfound clarity, the storm inside him quieting as memory surfaced through the cracks of his grief. Then Cale drew another small shape beside the first. This one was smaller, softer, less defined. A circle with two tiny marks inside it. Elias frowned gently. "What is that?" Maya stared at it for a long moment. Her voice came out in a whisper. "It looks like a face." Cale's breath trembled faintly, his eyes softening. He touched the smaller symbol gently, with a tenderness that made the air shift, warm like someone remembering a loved one. Elias felt the realization break over him quietly. "Someone you lost," he murmured. Cale lowered his head, not in fear, but in the heavy, aching acknowledgement of truth. The stormlight dimmed around him as if honoring the memory he had just placed before them. Maya pressed her palm to the barrier again. "I am sorry," she whispered. Cale looked up, meeting her eyes. For the first time, the amber glow carried something unmistakable. Not power, not fear, understanding. And Elias realized this was the true beginning. Cale was no longer simply calming. He was opening, revealing, trusting them with the truth of who he once was and the pain he still carried. The fallen king was rising, piece by fragile piece. The room felt suspended in a stillness so complete that even the soft hum of the stormlight cage seemed to fade into the background. Cale Tharn remained seated within the gentle glow, his hand resting over the symbols he had drawn, the crest of a leader and the small face that carried the quiet weight of memory. Maya Carter stayed close to the barrier, her small body turned toward him with the kind of empathy that needed no instruction. Elias Ward stood beside her, the diagnostic wand forgotten in his hand. He no longer checked numbers. The truth of the moment was far beyond anything a scanner could measure. Cale lifted his gaze, and for the first time his eyes held a steady clarity, the amber bright and focused. He pressed his hand against the inner surface of the barrier, mirroring Maya's palm again, the gesture soft but filled with intention. The stormlight shimmered, warming into a quiet gold that washed across his face. Elias felt something shift in the air, like the last piece of a puzzle falling gently into place. "Cale," he said softly, "is there something more you want to show us?" The Wolf King gave a slow, deliberate nod. Then he extended his fingers toward the barrier and began tracing new lines in the light. These marks were different from the first two. They formed a pattern of parallel arcs, flowing outward like waves or branches. Elias watched the shape form, recognition blooming slowly. "Maya," he whispered, "do you see that?" She nodded. "It looks like arms." Elias inhaled. "It looks like reaching." Cale completed the symbol, then placed his palm over it with a gentle firmness. His head bowed, the motion filled with a kind of solemn grace. When he lifted it again, he looked directly at Elias and Maya. There was no confusion in his eyes now, only meaning. Maya spoke first, her voice quiet and sure. "He is saying he wants help." Elias nodded, his throat tightening. "Yes, he is reaching out." Kale shifted his posture, rising slowly to his feet. Not in anger, not in fear, but with the dignity of someone remembering who he was. The stormlight halo brightened, expanding in a wave that reflected off the polished floor like sunrise spilling gently across still water. Maya stepped closer. "Is it safe if I talk to him again?" Elias gave a small, careful smile. "I think he is waiting for it." She placed her palm to the barrier. "We are here," she whispered. "You do not have to hurt inside anymore." Kale closed his eyes as if letting the words settle into places deeper than sound. Then he lowered his head, slowly, deliberately, in a gesture neither Elias nor Maya had ever seen from him. A gesture that held gratitude, respect, and something more fragile. Trust. Elias felt the air warm. "He is acknowledging you," Elias murmured, awe-threading through every word. "He is offering peace." Maya's smile spread slowly, gentle as the glow surrounding him. "Then we give it back," she whispered. Kale opened his eyes again. The amber light in them reflected Maya's small silhouette and Elias's steady stance behind her. Not fear, not loneliness, just connection. Quiet, real, healing. The stormlight flared once, soft and bright, then settled into the calmest rhythm the station had ever recorded. Kale stood tall within the glow, no longer shattered, no longer lost. And in that stillness, Elias knew the truth. The fallen king had risen again, not by power or command, but by the smallest whisper from a child who saw the person inside the storm.